Hello VRay users, Alex here, VRay Guide, and today I'm gonna show you the most advanced feature of VRay 5, and that is a LightMixer. And of course I'm gonna show you along the way some cool new features of a VRay frame buffer that you might miss. Okay, so stay tuned in order to discover those cool new features of VRay 5. As you can see here, I'm using 3ds Max Scene from Chaos Group with a bunch of cool lights, and I think this is a very good example to test our LightMixer. I'm gonna do a test render here just to show you how this thing looks. You can, by the way, you can download this thing below and try it out together with us while we do this tutorial. So I'm gonna switch to HD TV in order to get a better angle, 1280, and pull my camera back a little bit, something like this, so I'll be able to get a little bit better angle at my objects. Alright, cool. Okay, now I'm going to open my rendering settings. And here I'm just gonna click render, see what we get. Okay. Now the first feature that I want to show you is lens effect right here. So we can do lens effects inside VRay, which is pretty cool. It's part of post-production. And you know, it's very hard to make lens effect to stick to something if you're moving with the camera, but those are embedded inside. So I think this is a pretty cool feature right here. And you can see everything kind of glows. Now, enable, disable, this is how we can add the lens effects to our scene. We have a bunch of controllers here. We can control threshold. We can rotate them. We can change the aperture shape. We can change their shape, how many blades we want. 5, 6, 4. Those are looking pretty cool. We can rotate also the blades. Streak blur, I want them to be blurry or very, very thin and nice and defined. I like kind of those effects. Looking more realistic. Peripheral grading, that's the glow around. So again, you can see the glow a little bit there, but if we change the density, we can bring it much closer. Okay, so just to show you this effect, that's what it does. You can see, depends on the density and the length. You can get a nice rim glow around it. Very cool effect. But you gotta be careful with making it, because it's gotta be very, very subtle. Okay, if you start seeing those things, if it's showing too much, it might just, you know, drag attention and produce unrealistic results. Lens scratches, that's another cool feature that we have here. It kind of smears the lens. So let's do the streaks. Also 3, 4, we can do as much as we want. Those are pretty cool. Density. Again, those things needs to be very, very subtle, not for the view, more for the feeling. Just play around with those parameters. And in the interactive mode, here we can also see lens dust. Okay, those are looking pretty good. And if we scroll all the way down, we can see that representation of how this thing looks. Okay, so this is looking pretty cool. All right, so that's the first part of that tutorial. We can do lens effects. Now let me show you the advanced part of that. I'm gonna stop the render, open my rendering dialog, go here to the render elements, and if I go to my source RGB and switch to LightMix, I'll be able to get here all the panel with my lights, but I need to add it. So that's what it says here. Please add light mix and re-render. So let's go and add our light mix right here. Click OK, and let's render. Immediately we get all the lights that we have in our scene. That's how the light mixer works. It just brings you those lights right away, and we can start doing really cool things with this light mix. Okay, so we have the general control for our lights, and then we have for each light we can disconnect it, connect it, we can add more of the intensity, we can also change the color. So let's find our wire, our filling light. Okay, so that's the main light. I want to increase my filling light here. Look at that. Everything happens while I'm rendering. Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's not that crazy because Corona had it already for a couple of years, you know, and it's a good thing, you know, that Chaos Group got Corona, because now we get all the privileges, all the good stuff we get in VRay. And also the new algorithm is rendering pretty fast, so that's a very cool thing. And wow, look at that, we're getting this nice light shift, pretty cool. That's from the bloom and the glow that we're getting here. Maybe we should reduce that a little bit, the bloom. It's very, very delicate thing to control those. Okay, size, intensity. I'm going to reduce the intensity a little bit, you know, just to make it more, you know, realistic. Because we're getting here a lot of bloom, and I'm not a big fan of that. Okay, let's go back to our light mixer. And with this environment, I actually want to give it more orange color. We can choose and play with different colors. You can see how it's been shifted, but something like this. Wow. Yeah, kind of darker orange. Very cool. Now, self-illumination, those are the bulbs inside. Environment, and we have fill light here. Which one is this? Just from the side. We have another fill light from the back behind the camera, so let's get a little bit higher too, and let's see how different colors affected it. And you can see that the mix of colors change the color of the material. It's just pretty good. If we just look at that bed cover here, every time I'm using, now it's kind of looking gray because I've added green color. and the green together with the yellow, it kind of balancing the blue. So here, everywhere it kind of looks bluish, but the minute I start to introduce green color, you can see it becomes gray. So that's a very very useful tool to discover colors in your scene without actually going into deep post-production, you know, with your scenes. So just before you finish the render, you can just test it out, check it out how it looks. Okay, so I took one fill light behind the camera and I changed it from blue to green, and that's the effect that I'm getting. Not getting too much of that bluish color. Okay, that's another fill light. That's affecting too much the scene. But this purple is, wow, it's kind of balancing everything so nicely. I'm gonna stay with it, even though it doesn't make sense. It's just very nice to see. And I want to throw a little bit more light from the side here. You know, maybe that's a little bit too much. All right, I just love this glow and the shift in color. It's looking pretty cool. Okay, so this is the LightMixer as far as it goes to controlling all your lights. Let's get that a little bit more of that. Can get enough of that LightMixer, you know. And overall, that's the overall lighting. So the overall, let's get it down a little bit. So we'll make it more kind of dramatic. I want to get I mean, not too dark, not too contrasty, because now we're gonna add that contrast by using composite. So on the composite layer, we can get a bunch of other cool stuff. So if we go to composite, we can start compositing on top of that layer, and you can see that if I go to denoiser and lens effects, the render element is not working, so I can put it on top of the source composite. If I click on the plus, I can start adding render elements here. And let's go and see what kind of render elements we have. So far it's what I've added. And we can see we have a single render element for each bulb. We have for the fill light, for the key light, and for the effect. So I'm gonna go back to my reflections, actually to my lighting, and I'm gonna put it on screen. And you can see that it adds a nice extra layer of light, which is pretty cool. We used to do this stuff in Photoshop, but here we can do it all inside, which I find very awesome feature. Let's add another render element, and I actually want to add specular. And you can see if you put it on the add, it will add it. If you put it on the screen, it will just remove, but it will leave those overexposed areas. So just put it on the add, and you will have it nicely implemented into your scene, which is pretty cool. Without, and we have with specular, very nice bluish effect. And the stuff is not glowing here as much as it used to, because I kind of balanced and fixed the lenses and the glow, and you can see it's very subtle. Pretty cool stuff. Let's continue by adding some post-production. I'm going to add another render element. We have constant here. Constant is exposure. We can see if we need to add a little bit more light, a little bit more gamma, we can do it. So let me just add that for that sake of idea. And I'm gonna balance it back by using exposure. So with exposure, I can bring the contrast back, like that. So that's what we do normally in 3D. We kind of render washed out image because it's much easier to remove, to add contrast than to remove contrast. And that's the reason why we do washed out images, because if you do really contrasty images and the contrast already in there, it will be very hard to take it out. Okay, but if you have enough room, to add contrast, then you can get really, really nice results. And you can see our image is getting much nicer here. And contrast. So that's another cool feature here, highlight burn. If I'm getting really burned and overburned results, I can kind of lower it down so it will not start burning like it's burning the frame here. So I'm gonna get back the color, and it will not be that overexposed. Let's do white balance. So here we can control the temperature. If you want to get it warmer, if you want to get it colder, it's all in our hands. And you can see the image is still rendering, I'm still kicking the progressive IPR. Alright, so something like that. This will be cool. Let's add another one, hue saturation, and I'm going to reduce, I'm going to add a little bit saturation here, just a slight smidge. And that's the lightness. I'm not going to touch lightness here. I'm going to add color balance and do post-production here on the color balance. That's overall. And in the mid color, we're doing a little bit of a yellowish and a little bit of a reddish. On the highlights, we do a little bit of a cyan and a little bit of a blue. Always hide to see where you're going with your image. And in the shadows, looking nice. Somewhere here in between. That's the main controller for that effect. I'm gonna do it like that. Okay, so from a little bit too greenish, kind of bringing the colors back. All right, now let's do curves. That's a very cool. Here I really like to control my all the shadows, all the aspects of my image. So if you can click on that controller here. Somewhere here. And if you double click, you can add a point which you can control. Okay, so this brings a little bit more of a contrast, making that dramatic kind of look. Okay, so this is going pretty good. And the last one is my favorite one. It's called filmic tone map, and this is the grading that film industry is using. So here we can really get into our contrast and control of our entire scene in order to get that nice filmic look and get all the colors and everything in the right proportion. And that's the effect. Overall, if you can see, it's kind of washed out, but the minute we're adding that filmic effect, boom, everything is going into perfect exposure here, into perfect contrast. We don't have that washed out look like we had it here, and again, you have to train your eye in order to start seeing those things. But if you don't see them, just hide the effect. That's how you calibrate your eye in order to see those overexposures, underexposures, and washed out areas. All right. So I think we're pretty much done here. VRay 5 got cool new materials library that I'm gonna show you in the next video tutorial. But as is for now, download the scene below, test it out for yourself. Thanks for watching. This is Alex, your VRay guy. Ciao.